My guest is Scott Barry Kaufman. He is a passionate researcher and a passionate professor at New York University. He is the author of Ungifted, Intelligence Redefined. He is the co-founder of the Creativity Post, and he writes the blog Beautiful Minds for Scientific American, and I could go on and on and on. And you play the cello still.
Not so much anymore.
Not so
but
much
I still
anymore.
sing karaoke.
You do?
Yeah.
Well, one of your passions.
Yeah.
So if you could restructure the education system as we know it in North America, if you could blow up IQ tests,
I don't
or
want
do
to blow up
something
IQ
radical,
tests. You're right.
how would you change it?
Yeah, so I don't want to blow up IQ tests. But I think that instead of, a lot of people talk about different kinds of, a lot of education reformers, they say we need effort-based education, or we need, this kind of education. What I think is we need engagement-based education. And what I mean by that is shifting our focus from achievement or standardized achievement. I think that if we shift from that to deep, personally meaningful engagement in the learning, so we assess engagement, but not superficial memorization, rote memorization, or that kind of learning, we actually would get better out of.
Well, and as humans, some things are just easy for us. Some of us are number geniuses, some of us are not, some of us are word people, music. That's a natural thing.
That's true. I think all of us, though, can develop any of those things to a certain degree. And it's actually, I think it'd be harmful to tell kids, it's okay you're not a numbers person, you can be this kind of person, because you start to internalize that, and that's the opposite of a growth mindset. That's a fixed mindset. So I think we can still, you're right, there's a reality there that talents exist, but all talents must be developed.
For sure.
Yeah.
As you said, Michael Jordan wasn't born getting that basketball in the hoop. So engage in what you love, important. Your influences on that are family and your siblings and peers.
That's right.
Your teachers.
It's all part of a system. It's actually all part of a culture, right? Our current, the current dominant culture of education is, I think, very detrimental to human flourishing.
So raising a future leader in today's schools, in future school, what should we be teaching? What should we be encouraging?
Well, we should be encouraging the growth and development of deep personal interests, but also we should be encouraging mastery. And by mastery, I'm basically saying I think that depth is more important than breadth. Right? So we should be instilling in kids a sense of pride and autonomy for the learning process and a love for the learning process. We take out the love for the learning process is what we do.
And there are many kids who are bored.
Not just many,
uninspired.
But recent numbers show we're talking as high as 80% of children in school say that they're just totally zoned out from the education process, the learning process.
Because it's too strict or too regimented, it's too, you must study dinosaurs, because if you don't know about dinosaurs, you won't make it in the world, or what?
So there's the reasons most students cite for being unengaged include they don't see the relevance for the material for the personal lives. And also another shocking, I think might be shocking for some people, is that they're not being challenged enough. So a lot of people assume that a lot of people are unengaged because maybe they find the work too hard, but no, that's not true. It's we're not engaging them enough to want to reach beyond their limits in a way that they care about.
Okay, you had the privilege of having Randy Pausch, who died and did that last lecture on the Oprah show, and I'm sure many are familiar with him as a professor.
That's right. That's correct.
What did you learn from him?
I learned a lot. He used to give lectures in our class about things that like life lessons. So he gave us a whole lecture about time management. But another thing that really struck me about him is he talked about his time with the Disney Imagineers, and he would show slides and he used to tell us stories. And what really struck me about that is his passion for and playfulness. His playfulness. He showed the games he used to play in design, but there was like a youthful energy to that I really identified with.
Einstein said, I believe it was Einstein, imagination is more important than knowledge.
Yeah.
Mortimer Adler, 6 Great Ideas, philosopher. His main thing was he wanted kids to learn how to think.
That's correct.
Are we doing that?
No, we're not teaching kids to learn how to think or learn on their own, autonomously. That's the problem.
What is the impact of social media, video games, playing Angry Birds rather than watching real birds.
Do you know what I think's going on there? I think that what we're doing is we're demanding their attention so much, but the attention that we're demanding out of the children is uninteresting to them. So their mind is desperately seeking other sources of information that would engage them. So these are the things they turn to. But I don't think it has to be that way.
How should it be, if
We
not
should-
that way?
Well, we should not, first of all, demand their attention. We should not demand their unwilled attention. We need to demand their attention in a way that captivates them. That's it. The answer, I think, is as simple as that, but it's hard to implement.
Okay, and in school, as you know, you're not supposed to be different.
Yes.
You get in trouble if you're too different.
So a big key to that engagement is recognize that individual differences in the classroom exist and should not be swept under the rug. They should be appreciated. I can give you a whole list of things, from like musical intelligence to spatial intelligence to fluid reasoning to working memory to verbal reasoning to writing, creative writing. I can give you the list on and on and on. People have these different inclinations.
When you were research assistant to Nobel Prize winner Herbert Simon, the late, I believe,
Yeah, that's correct.
what did you learn from him? Big social scientist, right?
Huge.
Herbert Simon, huge social scientist.
He won the Nobel Prize for his ideas in satisficing.
In what?
Satisficing. So
Satisficing.
the economic model before then was that we have this unlimited cognitive capacity. We make our decisions through this rational, calculus. He's like, no, it's good enough. We pick our wife or husband because we're like, you know what? I'm good with you. I'm good with you. That's called
Yeah.
satisficing.
Okay.
Yeah. So I learned a lot about the importance of expertise through him. I was an undergrad, and he was gracious enough to let me sit in on his graduate course and I took his last ever course that he taught on the expertise and his whole life's work on the importance of getting a deep knowledge base which you can use to acquire new information quickly.
And today, to encourage creativity, whether somebody is bipolar or autistic, what needs to change?
So this is a common theme over and over again that I've noticed when I look at research on children with autism, children with all kinds of dyslexia, all kinds of minds. There's a particular study, I can give you an example of children with autism. If you engage them in what's called their special area of interest, you find that most of their symptoms disappear. So I think this phenomenon is incredible. You can actually, studies have documented that all these autistic traits in these children, if we say, like, let's say they're obsessed with dinosaurs, classifying dinosaurs.
Yes.
If we let them classify dinosaurs in a way that connects with the lesson plan we care about, you find that when they're engaged and when they're excited and they're in that area, all these tics, all these shaking, all these autistic type traits tend to evaporate.
Fascinating. What keeps you doing this, redefining intelligence, looking at creativity and the many paths to greatness?
I don't know. I felt ever since the injustices I personally experienced and that I saw as a child, I've just been down this one obsessive. Maybe there's a touch of autistic traits in me that are very adaptive, right? The attention to detail and the obsessive quest to understand the answer to this one question. What is intelligence?
And, well, how do we define it? How do we redefine it? How do we measure it? Who has it, who doesn't?
Those are good questions too.
Well,
I like all those questions too.
that will keep you going for a few years because if I'm correct with my math, you're like 34-ish, 35-ish,
That's
34
right.
years
That's right,
old.
yeah.
So you have a ways to go.
Hopefully.
So do you know where you're going next? Are you a goal setter?
So I think I can announce my next job, which I start in a couple months. I'll be at University of Pennsylvania starting the Imagination Institute with the famous Martin Seligman, who is the
Really?
founder of the field of positive psychology. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Imagination Institute.
That's my next chapter of my life is the Imagination Institute.
And what will you do there? Do you know?
Yeah, we'll be funding and conducting research on developing imagination and maybe creating an imagination IQ scale type of thing. And we also will be trying to talk to creators in fields, like great geniuses in different fields, and kind of understand what it takes to reach those levels of imagination.
Human possibilities, human potential.
That's right.
We talk about it a lot.
That's right.
So the Imagination Institute, can anyone go? Or do you have to be a student, a college student?
Well, I think we want to assemble a wide range of people interested in studying these topics. It's going to be mostly comprised of researchers,
Sure,
right?
sure, of course.
Yeah, so.
If you could talk truth about emotional intelligence,
Sure.
like Daniel Goleman wrote that book
He sure did.
called EQ, saying
Right.
that EQ, our emotional intelligence, is just as important as our other intelligences.
That's right, and he basically popularized ideas of the researchers Peter Salovey and Jack Mayer,
Right.
who developed the theory, and then he made it more accessible to a wider audience. There are emotional intelligence tests that measure 4 branches, performance tests, things like that. I think that you do see that it does this ability to understand your own emotions, to be able to understand emotions of others, manage emotions. These sorts of abilities are incredibly important for empathy, for getting along with others on a team, for lots of things. So I do think emotional intelligence is very important.
Sure, and there are kids that are good at tests and kids that are not good at tests, and there's geniuses at tests who aren't very smart in real life.
So that's an excellent point. You know, when we use the word gifted, we have to be clear we're not talking about one type only. There are many ways of being gifted. There absolutely are.
One day, will you play the cello for me?
I'll think about it. Yeah,
No,
I will.
I
will.
hear you learned that in about a year
I will.
or something.
I'd be happy. I'd be an honor.
Okay,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is good. How nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for having me on.
Ungifted Intelligence Redefined, Scott Barry Kaufman, my guest, and thanks for being here with me today. There will be many more beautiful minds and great conversations to come here on Shaw TV.